Have you ever wondered what all the civil servants at the government of Jersey do? I certainly used to until I joined the government a couple of years ago. And then I was amazed at the breadth and talent of the people I met and their passion for the work they do. If you've always wanted to know the answer to that question, then this podcast is for you. This is Inside Gov, where we take you behind the scenes at Union Street and introduce you to some of the people who keep Jersey going.
Well, for the benefit of listeners, my name is Edward Lewis. I'm the Executive Director at Jersey Overseas Aid, and I'm delighted to be joined by Alice Armanni, who is the Section Chief for the Pool Fund branch for the Office of Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. Welcome to our island. And also with me is Deputy Carolyn Labey, Chair of JOA and Minister for International Development. Welcome both. Now, before we get on to the sort of meat of the subject, which is why we have such a big organisation visiting our small island and what we hope to achieve in the next couple of days, I think it's probably worth rewinding a little bit and asking you to explain, if that's okay, a little about OCHA, how it fits in with the UN system and what its mandate is.
Super, happy to. OCHA is the UN's Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. We exist in support of the Secretary General and in support to all member states in helping coordinate and bring together humanitarian assistance so it gets to the people who need it, where it's needed, when it's needed, in the most efficient manner. So that requires having a good contextual understanding of the needs on the ground, including in the very deep field, and also understanding how member states and regional entities can support us in our efforts to promote global solidarity.
Fantastic, thank you. Now, I'm sure that many listeners might not have been aware of OCHA, but I think there's also a possibility that some of the listeners might not actually know much about our own aid agency, Jersey Overseas Aid. Minister, would you mind giving a small overview of our organisation as well, how it's set up, how it's governed, and what its mission is?
Yes, indeed. Jersey Overseas Aid is the island's official aid agency, and we are 100% funded by the government. And our aim is to fulfill our international obligations, and Jersey Overseas Aid is the arm that delivers on that. We're governed by a board of 6 commissioners, of which 3 are states members, myself included, and 3 are non-states commissioners. And they're totally independent. So we make decisions on the monies that we receive. We allocate, this is broadly, 25% to humanitarian aid, 50% in sustainable development grants, and the rest we use for our volunteer programs, bursaries, and the like. And also we support some local charities that are doing international development work. So that's Jersey Overseas Aid. And Alice is here today to talk specifically about the humanitarian side, the emergencies that we use. We use OCHA to deliver some of that aid.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much. So you mentioned 25% of JOA's budget goes on humanitarian assistance. And one of the key mechanisms or tools that we fund in our humanitarian program are country-based pool funds. And sort of putting it back to you, if you wouldn't mind just giving an overview of country-based pool funds, how they fit within the humanitarian architecture, and why they're such an effective tool to deliver assistance.
Thank you. No, glad to. And I would like to also say a word of appreciation to Jersey for your financial support and your trust, as well as the thought leadership. But your contributions to the pool funds are joined up with other contributions from other member states, which the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs essentially manages on your behalf. We do that bringing those resources to the countries that you select, identifying which are the most pressing humanitarian needs at any given point in time, and using those resources very catalytically in a very directed manner to help deliver change and impact in our humanitarian operation. We consult our partners in country including in the most remote locations, to get a real accurate understanding of the priorities. And I'm also pleased to say that through our allocations, we're able to bring partners together to create a holistic response so that affected people have both water, food, shelter, that they receive all the panoply of goods and services that they need to improve their lives. So these pool funds are extremely important. We also implement them through partner organizations that are all vetted, that are considered best in class. We select the partners that are best placed to deliver on any existing program. And through that, we really maximize the impact of the humanitarian system.
Thank you, Alice. And I think just a follow-up question on that, when we talk about partners who are accessing these funds, can you just give me an example of the range of those partners?
So we do have quite the range. We're very proud with the country funds that 46% of our resources actually support local and national NGO partners in country that are doing great humanitarian work. They don't have maybe big names that are known internationally, but they're embedded in their communities. They know what their communities need, and they deliver very efficiently. At the same time, we also fund international NGOs and UN agencies, again, looking at who is best placed to deliver in any given environment. And that will depend on access, that will depend on a myriad of elements. But we work with over 700 partners globally with which we have long-term relationships.
Thank you very much. And I think the question for you, Minister, in terms of why country-based pool funds are an attractive mechanism for Jersey, a small donor like Jersey. Well, why pooled funds?
Well, exactly, because we're a small donor, and I think we can utilize the efficiencies brought about by the pool funding because strategically they're best placed. They've got people on the ground. They know which agencies are best to deliver what, and they can see and report back what is needed. So if we funded something and they decide that it's medicines that are needed or food that's needed, they can go out and use the pool funding and go straight out and deliver. And they do the due diligence and they report back to us, which is certainly for a politician, that's really important because the people of Jersey want to know that where their money is going, what it's being spent on, and so do we. So we can report back to the public, publish our accounts, and be fully open and transparent.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. And I think it was under your chairship that Jersey OCHA Aid made its first allocation to a country-based pool fund. It was the Damascus Syrian Fund in 2016. And since then, we've gone on to support numerous country-based pool funds. And I think upwards of £7 million since 2016 have been allocated to those. Part of the governance structure is the pool fund working group, which is essentially, I guess, the advisory board of the body that represents the donors and OCHA. And over the next couple of days, Jersey has the honour of hosting the meeting as co-chairs since we took over from Norway last year, along with Italy. Could you just give us maybe some top lines of what we might be talking about in the next couple of days, and then how that might influence decisions in terms of operational capacity and how it's really going to make an impact on aid delivery?
Right, no, thank you, and really excited to be here, and very excited to have Jersey as our co-chair of the Pool Fund Working Group. The next few days are going to be very important. This is a very critical time for the humanitarian system, as we've seen aid budgets cut. We have been stretched for many years with more crises, including climate-related crises, challenging us around the globe. But now with compounding to that, the cuts in aid budgets, we are now having to quite literally rethink our business model. It builds on many years of practice and piloting and thinking about how to evolve our work. Every areas of work do need to evolve with time. And so we're at this critical juncture of rethink and reset and reform. The pool funds are part of delivering that reform. It is very clear from the most senior levels in the UN that the pool funds are going to help the humanitarian system transition into a new tomorrow. And the new tomorrow is about trying to continue to deliver to as many people as possible with fewer resources. And that will require us to support differently. It will require us to support local national partners, as we've been doing. In fact, the pool funds are front runners. They're industry cutting edge in the industry on how to do this, but really working through local and national partners, supporting them from behind, providing technical know-how and the important monitoring and oversight, and then that'll allow the international system to work in more places and to sort of force multiply. So the next few days are a chance to discuss with our governing board just how to do this, and how to create momentum for this new vision for our pooled funds.
Yeah, no, thank you. And Deputy Labey, perhaps a tricky one, but I mean, often we do see the comments on Facebook, we see sort of members of the public questioning, why does Jersey give overseas aid, and why particularly to humanitarian aid?
Well, I think this year is a poignant year to answer that question. After 80 years of peacetime, we reflect back at what it was like for us during the occupation, and the Jersey people that were left here were literally some weeks of starving. The whole population were weeks away of being wiped out. So our aid came in the form of Canadian and New Zealand Red Cross parcels. And they came in on the SS Vega. So we have got to reflect back on that and consider what we can do to help others in similar situations, not exactly the same situation, but in similar desperate crises. So I think that is a good enough reason to be giving, but also I think the developed world, the international world, should help those less unfortunate, because you never know what's going to happen tomorrow, do you?
Absolutely.
So I think we live in a global world, so we're here to help one another.
Thank you. And I think, Lisa, Alice, we were talking earlier about the power of the narrative that Jersey has, and you engage with several more, I'm sure dozens of government donors. How important is a message like this to amplify, given where we are in an era of funding cuts and skepticism around what aid achieves? How important is a message like Jersey's to get out there?
I think that message is critical, and I want to really say how inspiring it is to hear Jersey, and on behalf of the people of Jersey, who recognize history, who recognize that we are now a global community, and who recognize that it is important to help each other. We're in a polarized world. Geopolitics have become very, very complicated. These messages of solidarity are decreasing, and to be able to remind the global community and of the commitments and of the challenges of the past, and the commitments for the future, I think is so, so important. And I know history will judge us all, and I sense that Jersey will be on the right side of that.
Thank you, and I totally agree. And I think it's interesting because we often get the question of what can a small donor like Jersey achieve? And I think that we're answering that by hosting this meeting here, but also the powerful message that can be delivered to others to try and encourage others to step up to international concerns. Deputy Labey, you've also, through the role as chair, been able to travel and seen firsthand the impact that Jersey funds have around the world. Is there a particular moment or a particular country or setting or context that sticks in your mind when you think back about those?
There's quite a few really, but I'll give you two examples. The first being when I visited the Zatari camp in Jordan, massive camp of refugees. The population in Zatari camp is more than the population of Jersey. So one has got to visualize that. But I think a moment there was when I was visiting a makeshift school, and I was in a classroom with 16, 17-year-old girls. They all spoke perfect English, of course. And I was asking them what they wanted to do. Well, you know, they were all studying different subjects, what they wanted to do. And they said, oh, I'd like to be a pilot, I'd like to be a surgeon, I'd like to be a teacher. And when I came away from that, I actually thought, there's actually nothing. There's nothing for them. They will leave the classroom when they are of a certain age, and that's it. They have nothing. They can't work. They're not allowed to work. So that, I thought, was a desperate situation. You know, young, intelligent women sort of wanting to play a part, as is their right, in the world, and they couldn't.
And one of the areas that Jersey OCHA also is involved in is providing opportunities for islanders to get into the UN system, actually. So we do fund JPOs through UNHCR. And I think it would be really interesting for listeners to perhaps understand a bit about how you got into the UN system, how you got to where you are now. I think it could provide perhaps some inspiration and perhaps some guidelines for people that are wishing to get into the UN section.
Thank you. No, and I took maybe a bit of an original path, although many humanitarians have their own journey towards our line of work, because I started my career in the private sector, in banking, but I decided at a certain point to follow my one passion, which was humanitarian action. And so I actually got a degree in international humanitarian affairs, very specifically. And there was actually picked up at the university in Geneva at the time by the Red Cross, and then worked there for 7 years, including representing them at the UN. And from there, I was brought in by the Office for the Coordination to sit on the other side of the equation. But I would say my best advice for people wanting to join this line of work is to travel to the deep field in any capacity, even small NGOs, as a volunteer, whatever it may be. See what's out there with your own eyes. It also gives you enormous credibility as you develop in your career and helps you ground truth, all your actions. Because in the end, every morning when we have lots of competing priorities and demands on us, the only way to sort of make your decision is to think, what would people out there want us to do? And that being able to inform that decision every day by your experience in the deep field is priceless.
No, thank you. And Minister, I've seen today how busy you've been. People won't necessarily understand the roles and the responsibilities a minister, a chair, and a deputy have in one day. Would you mind just giving me an overview of your day today, where you've come from, who you've been engaging with, the topics that have been discussed? Because I think that will give a real insight into sort of the priorities, the topics that come onto your desk on a daily basis. And I think people, should know just how hard it is to try and address all of these, and how often you're pulled into these as well.
I don't really know where to start, but maybe with chairing first thing this morning the Jersey Overseas Aid Commissioners meeting. We had a fairly full agenda. You want to know the things that we were discussing? I think
some of them could be. I think it'd be interesting for people to know.
Okay, we were looking at some of the countries that we support, for example, and considering if we should continue to support those particular countries. At the moment, we support 6 countries, 5 in Africa and Nepal. And we, the fantastic professional team at JOA had done a super piece of work to give us sort of possible other countries, because we have a formula for choosing our countries. It's a very specific formula. Shall I?
Yes, please do. I think, again, listeners would be interested to hear.
Okay, so we take the bottom 50 countries on the HDI, the Humanitarian Development Index. So those are the poorest countries in the world. We then divide it by the Corruption Perception Index squared, because as I said earlier, we are answerable to the taxpayers, so we have got to consider corruption. And then out of that list of then about 15 or so countries, we tend to pick the Anglophone countries because it's quite handy to be able to read the reports we're given. So we did, yes, so that was one of the items we were discussing, but various others, sort of funding Gaza, and which obviously comes up every meeting at the moment, as does Ukraine and other crises around the world. So we had, as I say, fairly full agenda. I'm trying to think where I went there.
The Chief Minister was such.
Oh, yes. I took our guests who have travelled all the way from New York to meet the Chief Minister, because we're incredibly proud to be able to be hosting this meeting, this conference in the next couple of days. So the Chief Minister met our guests, and then I think I did an interview for BBC, and then I did an interview for ITV just to tell everyone what we're doing. Then I had a meeting this afternoon with the External Relations Minister, because he's got scrutiny tomorrow, so he has some questions that were touching on my portfolio, so I needed to go and furnish him with some added information. And now I'm here. And then when I get back, I'll consider what I'm saying at the welcome speech I'm giving tomorrow at the start of the conference at 8:30. So I'll go back and consider that.
Great. So that was just Monday. So yes, yeah. Well, I'm sure you're looking forward to Friday. And Alice, I mean, a lot of people won't quite understand your day-to-day in New York and the headquarters of the UN. So would you mind just giving us an insight into what your typical day, if there is such a thing,
No,
in your
very
role?
happy to. Right, there isn't so much of a typical day, but the gist of the job, because I help manage 1.7 billion in pooled fund resources, both the ones in countries and a global fund that the UN has as well. So my day job, well, with my team, is to make sure that money goes out every day to where it's needed, that the funds keep on running, but also that our systems remain fit for purpose and that we continue to evolve our systems. We have an online platform where we give all our data in real time, and we're continuing to add bells and whistles to that data platform. And then overall, just looking at the humanitarian system at large, because our pool funds are there to make this humanitarian system the best that it can be. And so just trying to think of which are the innovations in our practices that we can support, how to move us forward in the things that we care about, the condition of women and girls. How do we respond to that? How do we make sure that humanitarian assistance sets everything up for sustainable development? There's so many topics that we're reflecting on. And so it's trying to guide those pool funds to be the best that they can be. So it's not just getting the money out on a daily basis. It's also just, navigating the future of the funds in discussions with member states. And I'll just take the opportunity to say that I think Jersey holds its seat very well and holds its place very well, and is really widely regarded and appreciated for the thought leadership that you provide to us, but also in a space of other member states. I think there's enormous positive regard for the role that you play and the values that you bring to the table.
Great, thank you. I think that sounds very positive. Not to bring it down, but I guess we see on a daily basis in the news, we see humanitarian workers killed, we see the erosion of international humanitarian law, we see systems that are bypassing the UN system. How concerned are you at this point about the sector in general? How fit for purpose is it, and what needs to be done to try and bolster it in this time?
So we are concerned. We're concerned for the people that we serve. They're our first point of concern. I think every system has to evolve. I think we're open to evolving and changing, but we do worry when we see a loosening of commitment to international humanitarian law, because the fires will only continue raging and worsen. I don't want to end on a negative note, but the rules of law are also there to protect the future and to leave spaces to build peace around. And without those, we know we'll have more work on our hands, unfortunately. So we're concerned about the system, but we're trying to treat crisis as an opportunity. We have friends. There are so many people out there that have a strong sense of solidarity. I think the youth of today understands so much of what's at stake. So right now, I think for us, it's how to mobilize those voices and that energy, and to try and maybe reset geopolitics a little bit, since they have seemed to go astray a little bit.
And what role, if any, do you think somewhere like Jersey can play in that?
Well, I think you play a critical role because perhaps you can say things that others can't, because you could also be a conscience when others cannot be. And I think because you have your own history, as was said by the minister, you have a collective memory, and you remind, and you it's great that you do remind other member states and others how important it is to hold these principles of humanity. Once lost, it's a very difficult principle to regain, and it is something that we all need to protect very carefully. So I would not underestimate the power of your voice at that table.
Great, thank you. Well, that's a very nice note on which to end. Minister, thank you very much. Alice, thank you very much.